really looking to multiply that model, right? Develop these strategic partnerships.
Right.
For example, multifamily development,
Yep.
looking for big land tracts, whether it be big multifamily or big single family home.
Yeah. This all over the Southeast, right? Ben's telling me you guys are going all the way out to Mississippi and everything like that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Definitely more of a virtual model.
Right.
So instead of being confined to the city of Columbia or greater South Carolina area, we can basically pull data from any county, any city in the United States, break it down by absentee owner, vacant, however detailed you want to be.
Right.
Bed and bath count,
Right.
equity percentage. And from there, get the phone number skip traced, upload it to the dialer, and then our team starts cold calling, drums up opportunities, right? So we're just sticking those inside of the CRM.
Right.
And then creating a follow-up system, right?
Right.
So really looking to multiply that model, right? Develop these strategic partnerships.
Right.
For example, multifamily development,
Yep.
looking for big land tracts, whether it be big multifamily or big single family home development opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's where Rob comes in as a developer, where he can kind of bring that expertise. He has his brokerage license, so he can reach out to all these big funds and development companies across anywhere he wants, basically.
Yep. And we can work on that from a transaction perspective, and then hopefully the goal is obviously to get involved in the development side too, right? So we want to have equity in it and try to grow from that perspective. So do you guys actually make the calls, or do you have a team outside that makes the calls?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Devontae basically was recently recruited to the acquisition side, so we like to kind of start from within, right?
Gotcha.
So Devontae was calling, and this dude is he's a sales expert. He's surgical with his skills, right? Build rapport, and we'll talk about like their different closing processes later on.
Sure.
Trey's like the kind of the smooth closer,
where
he'll sell you and you don't even know you're being sold. Where Devontae's a little bit more direct and to the point, but they're both very effective.
Well, I love that. Yeah, I mean that's two excellent skill sets, and I mean there's going to be crossover no matter what, right? And this is what it is. It's sales. I mean I try to get people to sell me their commercial land.
Right.
You guys get people to try to sell you your residential land.
Right.
And the differences are obviously the qualifiers for what makes a good deal, right? So I guess the next question would be, what familiarity do you guys have with commercial real estate at all?
Not too much, to be honest. We deal with 4 units or below.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Gotcha.
As far as we've gone in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
So as far as from you guys don't have much experience on the any kind of bigger than 4 unit multifamily or residential, larger single family residential.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that kind of gives me a platform I think just to kind of get started with, and I think that there's some basic things that are factors that come into play when you're looking for a viable commercial deal. And there's going to be different things that you look for a multifamily. And there's different types of multifamily assets, right? I mean, 4 unit is still considered a multifamily, but then if you're looking for a larger multifamily, you have different types, right? And you've seen them around, right? You have your garden style, which is your typical like suburban 4-story, 5 or 6 building. That's what they call a garden style apartment complex. Okay. You have your high rise kind of things that we see down here. You have your student housing, but what we're really I think going to be targeting is going to be. I think that the real opportunity is going to be on the affordable side. Okay. There's a lot of people that are after affordable housing right now, and there's a lot of developers who are willing to go after that. And the structure, from what I understand it, and I'm not an expert in the affordable housing field at all, but I know that there's money to be made there.
Right.
And so it's really interesting. The structure, as a developer, we could develop a multifamily affordable living unit right now.
Right.
You don't need equity. That's one of the coolest things about it. You develop it, you put the deal together, and they pay you a fee. As my understanding, they pay you a fee on the development process. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you own it at the end of the day. And you're going to have equity investors. You have to put equity into it, right? But as a development company, you can get it's 10% off of the total cost of the building. So say we're building a $3 million, the 10%, you're getting $300,000, boom, right there as your fee.
Or you could stay in the deal.
Well,
depending how you structure, right?
Yeah, depending on how you structure it. I mean, as us, as consultants to start out, we might, just look at it from like a transaction fee kind of perspective to start out. But as a developer, you're required actually to stay in it. You're required to stay in it for like 20-something years. That doesn't mean you have to be on site and actively like managing the property or anything like that. You can outsource that, right? But you have to commit to keeping it affordable for a certain period of time. The advantage is when you get your tax credits coming in, and that helps underwrite the equity side of the deal. So anyway, it's a little complicated, and I'm not sure I understand all of it. What I understand is site selection and what makes a good site. So I don't know. Let's try to maybe just go through a few basics on what we kind of look for from a site selection perspective for multifamily to start out with. Right. And I think that typically what I've heard is what they're looking for is going to be 5 to 10 to 20 acres of land. Okay. We'll start from a land perspective. Now there's obviously other ways you can do it where you like try to source an actual existing multifamily complex that can be converted. A big thing right now is hotel conversions, value add, where you're like taking an existing like hotel property. I'm actually working on one of those in West Columbia right now, where a developer comes in and says, well, hotels obviously are struggling right now because of COVID, right? So you come in, you buy the hotel, you completely gut it all, turn it into affordable housing. Actually, I just went through a project in my grad school right now in Atlanta. There's a guy who's buying a huge hotel building. He's going to convert the whole thing into apartments. So it's like 375, room hotel that he's going to basically turn into 375 multifamily units. That's the kind of thing that people are talking about right now. But from a land perspective, so some of the things that are going to be different between the residential side and the commercial side are going to be, number one, we'll start with the zoning. Okay. So zoning is a big deal because of the time that it takes to put these deals together. And if you have to go through a rezoning, it could be very difficult once if you don't have the zoning that's already in place. It doesn't mean that you can't do the deal, right? But, for instance, there's various different municipalities have different zoning codes, right? I'm not exactly sure what Richland County and Columbia's zoning codes are and what they mean, but typically you have like an R1, R2, R3, R4. And those are based on different density per acre for units that you can do. So the way I think it is an R4 would be you can squeeze a lot of units into a small acres. That's the perfect multifamily.
And likely the R4 would probably be closer to amenities, right? Because you're packing more people in a denser location. Therefore, the zoning allows for more doors, right? Where if you're going out a little bit further, still a decent spot, but not smack in the middle of downtown or close to like all these different locations. That's where the zoning could potentially change. And of course, there's a lot of different factors. But.
I mean, so and a lot of the people, a lot of people will make their money on this. Well, they'll just go in, they'll tie up a piece of property, they'll entitle it, what's called. When you entitle it, what it means is you're just getting it ready for that next level of development, right? You're adding value by just taking it through the process. You're not even making. This is kind of like the commercial version of wholesaling, right? So you go in, you put the property under contract, and you just run it through the entitlement process of getting it approved for, say, multifamily. Say it's an agricultural tract, zoning is agricultural or something like that, or a lower density of housing. You go through the rezoning process and you upgrade it to a multifamily, zoning. That adds value immediately, right? And you're not putting any money into it. You're just rezoning the property, right? That's not a guarantee that it's going to happen. And you may have to put a little money into it as far as design work goes, like an engineer or architect or stuff like that. But you're basically saying, hey, developer, next level person, fund owner kind of thing in the equivalency, come in and I've already done this work for you, and there's a spread on what you have it under contract for and what you actually get paid for. So that's one way to do it. So we could look at that as well. There's so many different ways to do this, right?
How long does that process usually take? Does it vary? Or?
Yeah, it definitely varies. So that's one of the biggest differences you're going to find between commercial and residential is the deal flow, right? Bigger chunks, right? Bigger chunks of cash because you're looking at bigger deals. But the time frame is incredibly long. So for instance, for an affordable housing development, from the first call to payout, at least a year.
Gotcha.
Maybe more than a year. But
It's worth it.
rather than getting a $2,000 here, $5,000 here, you know, so you're getting $300,000, right?
Make up for that.
It makes up for that year.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
and you're doing this, once you understand this stuff, it's the same amount of work, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of process. There's less volume because there's not as many viable tracks. You know, say, you know, there's a lot more houses that are existing than there are commercial, you know, properties and opportunities just because they're the scale.
Right.
But, you know, if you're, you know, doing one, you know, for instance, I'm brokering a couple cookout restaurants right now. So I have sites around the Columbia area right now that we have under contract with cookout restaurants. I'm doing that as you know, as a broker, a brokerage fee. But I mean, you look at 3%, 4%. I mean, similar to what, you know, these residential folks are making on a housing split.
Right.
Except, you know, one of these properties I have under contract for $800,000. Right? So look at 3-4% of that. Already $30,000. Boom, just like that. And all I did was go and say, hey, Cookout, I think this is a good site for you guys. I called the owner. Was like, hey man, like your site, think that I have a use for you. And that's the way you're going to start it out, by just saying, hey, I represent some folks, investors who are interested in your property, think that there's opportunity here. Do you have any interest in selling your property? Let them talk, hear what they have to say, you know?
You guys might want to take notes on that. 'Cause we can develop a script on the fly as he's talking, like small nuggets like that.
Yeah.
And then we can work after the fact, and Rob can put eyes on it, and we can kind of walk through it. But write down those nuggets in your computer so we have them,
Right.
and then we can dial in from there.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just walk through a little scenario, right? So hey, you know, Mr. Property Owner, I'm working with an investment company that does a variety of different investment types. You know, whether it be multifamily to grocery to, you know, other types of retail, office. We think that there's opportunity with your property from one of those perspectives, and I would be very interested to know if you have any interest, if you've considered selling your property. Let them talk, let them answer, you know, and they'll probably, I mean, more often than not, you'll get so much information by just shutting up and just letting them talk, right? You guys probably are familiar with that, right? I mean, they'll tell you the whole story. But that's one of the reasons I love this game, is because, I mean, every property has a story, right? And, I mean, residential is a little, I mean, I'm sure you guys are into that. Every person has a story within that.
Yeah.
You know, what I think of, and the people are important, but I love hearing about the story of the property. Like, how did they come to acquire it? What was their plan in it? Is it family land? Is it something that, you know, that they had plans to develop themselves? Is it something that they are getting ready to look at taking to market because they're getting old? I mean, a lot of these older tract, you know, large properties have been in families for generations, right? A lot of times the way that you're going to, you know, strike something, and it's probably not too dissimilar from residential, is when someone gets older, you know, they're thinking, how am I going to leave this to my, you know, children? I mean, what is the value in that? One of the things, this is a great one to put in. The guy who mentored me told me this one, and I use it all the time. You know, if they kind of hem and haw, they're like, well, I'm probably just going to leave it to my kids and all this kind of stuff. Politely, you say, well, you know, Mr. Property Owner, Miss Property Owner, money is a lot easier to split than land, right? So you're thinking about legacy stuff. I mean, you're going to be coaching these people up and how they can make the most of their money, of their property, and kind of extrapolate the value out of that. So, you know, are you interested in selling your property? Well, I don't know. You know, I've thought about it. You know, I mean, we're not really sure. You know, we haven't really, you know, thought too much about it. But, you know, I'm willing to listen to something. I'm willing to take an offer. You know, next stage is you got to get a number. Okay. I don't know what, you know, whether you're able to get it or not. Some people are just going to outright refuse to give you a number.
Do you, in those situations, do you use the same tactic like we typically with price anchor? Like
Price anchor.
Giving a general like range, like a wide range of what we're seeing within like a half mile.
It's much harder to assess the numbers because
That's
every plat is going to be different, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So and pulling up those comps is going to be a lot more strategic as well.
Right.
So I would say almost you want to try to pull their price, extract their price if we can, but
That's right.
upon getting off the call, I would say, you know, thank you so much for the information. Let me have our underwriting team or our development team dive into this and see if it could be a viable solution or a good fit for us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you're not always going to get a number. Right. I hesitate. I pretty much never will make a proposition on the first call.
Okay, that's good.
I steer clear of that completely. I want them to give me a number, unless I do have a really good understanding of what their property's worth. And there are some situations you're gonna understand what a property's worth in the front end.
Because you've underwrote it before you got them on the call.
Exactly.
But the type of shotgun marketing we're doing, when we're pulling thousands of records, just getting people on the phone, we don't have that upfront due diligence, right? So we're just trying to extract information, and then the follow-up phone calls where we'll probably have Rob a little bit more involved is where that will play out. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll probably add him to like a specialty channel in Slack or even the CRM where we have just land development opportunities. He can dive in, really analyze each and every single lead that we get, and we can dive in from there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That would be great to have a Slack channel like that.
Yeah. No, I'm all about that. So, I mean, if you guys can get a number, that's great. That's awesome. That way, I can very easily say this is a waste of time or there's opportunity here, right? I mean, your typical, what you're going to be looking for like it depends on the size of the tract, right? But, I mean, ideally, you're going to want to be between, for a 10 to 20 acre multifamily property, you're going to want to be between 100 and 200,000. Less than that is better, right? $100,000 to $200,000 an acre. Sorry, $100,000 to $200,000 an acre. Those are viable, right? Those are viable from affordable or even market rate housing, depending on where it's located. Like if it's out in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing around it, and we're just kind of, especially there's a lot of affordable housing opportunities in more of the rural areas. Like for instance, Beaufort, South Carolina is like super high priority right now for affordable multifamily. Mm-hmm. And we may end up branching out to where we're making calls there.
We've already dove in. You gave me some different areas, locations that we highlighted. There really is somewhat limited data in Columbia with tracts that size. So we can very quickly pivot and pull these different areas. If Beaufort's a hot spot, let's identify those areas too.
Yeah, and we got on the phone with a group that is working and trying to find these sites. And they gave us several criteria what they look for. A lot of it's just going to be shotgunning these sites. If they have even the remotest qualification that we kind of see, okay, well, this has a possibility of being interesting based on what we've done. I guess after you guys give us the information, then we'll blast it to them, and that way we're going to get more information from them.
Okay.
Like that's the way we're going to get. We're going to be able to hone in what we're looking for. The more we're able to send out. Right? Because then people will say, yeah, that's good. I don't like this. I do like this about something, but I don't like this. Hey, have you looked here? Have you looked there? And they'll be able to give us more specific opportunity, more specific direction. So anyway, kind of going back to the script, I would say, try to get a number. Hey, do you have any, idea of what you would be willing to sell a property for? Mm-hmm. Right? And just let them talk and, him and Han, like, if they end up saying, well, we're not really sure, what do you think it's worth? I would say, well, you know what? I'm hesitant to say it right now because we haven't done a lot of due diligence on that. But my underwriting team or my development team can do a comparable sales analysis and give you at least a broad range of an understanding of what it would be. And at that point, you're going to need a little bit more information so we can actually do the digging that we would need. For instance, and we can look up zoning, right? We can look up utilities, which is another thing that I'll come to. That's a huge part of commercial property development. Is where the utilities are. Where is the sewer? Where is the water? Is there, has it been extended by the municipality out there? Maybe we'll get there. You're going to want to ask for a survey. Any kind of survey or plat that they have of the property that shows the specific dimensions. Most of the time, if it's a commercial property, most people will have a survey. Okay. If it's a little bit, if you think and you kind of gauge that the person that you're reaching out to is more sophisticated, I would specifically ask for an ALTA standard survey, which is ALTA, which stands for like the American, I don't even know, something, but it's a standard that all surveyors, that if it's an actual survey, it's held at ALTA standards, that's, you can take it to the bank, basically, literally. You take this to the bank, this is the property I'm buying.
Good.
It's called ALTA what?
ALTA standard survey. Yeah, and if they say, no, all I have is what is on, is at the county, great, we can look that up too. You know, I mean, the real point of making these calls is just to get a number more than anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I would say it's real similar to kind of what we already do.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the only thing that I would need to know is just the lingo to ask. And
Yeah.
really all I need to find out, because the other stuff is pretty similar
Absolutely.
to what we already do.
I would also, so a few other questions that are probably, you know, salient to ask would be, have you had any interest from anyone else? Or has anybody had the property under contract before?
Okay.
To see, you know, who they've worked with in the past, and that may open up a lot more information for you. Yeah, you know, I had this group that was interested in, you know, putting a bunch of houses here, you know, and you can find, oh, well, did they give you any information, did they give you any surveys or any work that they did on that? Can you send me that information? And you know, that's a great way to kind of open up the next level of conversation. You know, some other questions that I would ask are, you know, what is your, and you can kind of, I don't know, will you guys see how recently the property was bought? Will you see that information?
Likely.
Okay.
There's a good chance we can, unless it's so old that it's not recorded or harder to find.
Yeah, I would ask about that. Like, I see the property changed hands here. Can you tell me more about that? What your thoughts were on, you know, why it traded, you know, hands, or why you bought it?
Prop stream.
Yeah.
Prop stream will have that info.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's really basically that's really it
Okay.
for these land tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, because I guess you guys aren't going to do as much of the qualifying as much as we are necessarily.
We're getting people to raise their hands, right? We're filling up the pipeline.
That's
and
right.
then from there, we got to systemize that funnel, which
Yeah.
I think, again, with your skill set, really dialing that down, right?
Yeah.
And you can pull out the hotter leads where we really dial in.
Yeah.
We can have a board, or we can just have a shared spreadsheet
Mhm.
that we all just have loaded up, right? That's what we do with a lot of wholesale deals. And we just got the hot leads sitting right there.
Yeah.
Any notes, projections, you know, insider knowledge that we need, where we can really dial in on work on the acquisition.
Sure. And you know, I would say as well, I mean, when you guys get to the point where you can, you know, start qualifying some of these things, you know, you can probably tell just by gut, this is a good deal, this isn't a good deal, right?
Mhm.
Like for instance, if the property is majority, if there's a huge lake on it, and that's basically the majority of the land is actually like a big lake, it's not developable, right?
Gotcha.
Let it go.
Unless we tried to lock that up and build a home on it, shoot.
Oh well, unless that, right?
You
Look,
Been a little bit.
I would
I'm
say
an
go for it.
opportunist.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, hey, I don't know if that would work, then that's great. But I'm about the density, brother. We gotta build a lot. But
So if that kind of, well, I don't want to throw you off. What was you about to proceed to?
no, go for it, man. Let's go.
So like when you brought up the cookout situation,
Yeah.
you reached out to the owner of Cookout or to the owner of that building before Cookout?
Yeah, so I have a relationship with the owner of Cookout.
Gotcha, okay.
And so I already knew where they wanted to be.
Gotcha.
And that's
okay.
ideal. So I mean, there's two basic ways to source deals within the commercial real estate world.
Mhm.
Number one is through relationships. So for instance, with these developers that we talked to the other day, we were on a conference call with them, getting as much direction from them as possible about what they're looking for. That's one side of it. So a relationship on the pursuit side, but then you also can do the research side, which is getting ahead of the game and going and finding the land yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then pitching it to the person that's the end user, right?
Gotcha.
Saying, hey, I think this is a good deal for you. You know, but the more direction we can get from the actual end user, the better. So, for instance, the Cookout, the guy who owns Cookout was like, hey, man, I need to be in this area, this area, this area, this area. Find me sites.
And certain retailers that they like to stay close to, whether
Exactly.
it's Starbucks or
You do
Cookout,
see
like
that, yeah.
CVS
Yep.
and Dollar General, certain proximities. But that type of prospecting is a little bit, it's different than we do, and it's a different skill set that Rob already has that insider insight where he could dial in and scout the map, right? Looking at the GIS and looking at these big retailers and really dial in. So
Yeah.
we won't be having a large part on that side of the retail development, at least yet.
Yes.
It's just basically all we really needed was somewhat of a template
Yep.
and script that we can use, and
Yep.
I know we'll be just hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's perfect.
that's all we really needed.
As you were talking, I was thinking of one other thing to ask. You know, a lot of these things you guys are going to be looking at is just mostly the data, right? Some of these tracks, you know, it's going to be the same owner, who's going to have multiple tracks in the area, right? I would ask them, do you have any other land in the area? That's another good question to ask. Do you have any other property that you are interested in selling? Right? Because they could be, if they're a large landowner, chances are that they have a lot of other tracts of land. Phone number, or
I send it out to a third-party service.
Okay.
So I pull the data and I send it out to get the phone numbers. But in that data sheet, I have primary owner, phone number 1, 2, 3, sometimes up to 5, and then I have next of kin up to 5 individuals.
Oh, that's perfect.
I also have email addresses.
I'm about to say,
points of
we
contact.
can't get them on the phone. We can just hit them with the email.
Very intuitive
Perfect.
data.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just having that is, and I was telling Ben, one of the advantages of this system, and kind of psych you guys up about it. Nobody else is doing this.
Right.
Nobody's doing this.
Right.
And the reason is because brokers are lazy. Brokers are lazy, and especially people. The brokers in Columbia are great. Edit this part out. But
no, you keep it in, dude. It's organic. And the big brokers are lazy. They're not going to sit around the video long enough to even get to this point, if we're being honest. So,
that's fine. I just, I work with a lot of the brokers in Columbia, so I got to watch out what I say.
Right.
But a lot of great guys out there, but for the most part, they're not doing this legwork.
This is different. This is like a hybrid. It's something new.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know about like predictive dialer and data mining, pulling this information, and then actually putting it right, implementing that data,
and putting those two things together.
Exactly. And from the commercial side, they don't want to really do this either because they see, they think that there's not a path forward. And this is an experiment, right? We're going to see how it works. If it doesn't work, if we get a lot of brick walls, we'll pivot, right? But a lot of people, and this is the way they kind of protect their commissions, and because they say, well, we know the right places to go. We know who to call. We have these relationships. People that are doing this kind of stuff, they don't really have what it takes.
Right.
We're about to prove that wrong.
They got what it takes because they already have the network. They already have the relationships. And so these deals fall in their lap,
Right.
which is great because they've built that name for themselves.
Exactly.
Right? But they don't have the hustle.
That's
right?
the-
They
that's
don't have
the
the
thing.
grit to get out there and really fail forward and figure out how to take these tools that we now have. Like in the past 2 to 3 years, data used to be so hard to get. Like just even getting a phone number 4 years ago wasn't impossible, but it was a lot more difficult. And you could pay up to $1 a phone number, right? But just the worldwide of data, and like everything is public information now. So we have a lot of cool things at our fingertips.
So much cool stuff. And that hustle is what it takes, and no one has, even the largest brokerage firms in America don't necessarily have the infrastructure that you guys have here and the revenue stream to prove out that it's worth it to do this. I think it's amazing. And the fact that, that Ben has launched this is really unique,
Sure.
And, you guys are, I've admired, the way that you guys do things, and I think that we have a real opportunity to partner up and see some things happen. So that's really I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about helping you guys see a good deal, because another good question to ask, although we can do the lookup ourselves, ask them about the utilities. Do you have water onto your site? Do you have sewer on site, or is it a septic tank? Right, those are the two ways you dispose of things in the sewage. It's either have sewer from the municipality, or you have a septic tank situation, or people are still using outhouses. And I hope that's probably not the kind of thing. But maybe that is the kind of group we're going after. I don't know. But so anyway, you're gonna ask them about the utilities. You have city water. You have city sewer, and just let them talk, and maybe they know something about. Well, no, but it's coming, and then within the next this amount of time. Ask them about their road access. That's another huge part of this. Is like, so I see you have access here on this road. Can you tell me, has DOT contacted you about any plans to expand the road or anything like that? Just ask them if the DOT has talked to them about anything. I would say, that's probably a good place to start. A lot of people are going to be like, by that point, they'll probably be like, all right, I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? So you want to be sensitive to that. But I think that's a pretty good place to start. For sure. Those are good.
That was a lot of good insight.
If you can, if you think of anything else that you can find out for you that'll just make your job simpler, just let us know. We'll get it out of it.
Yeah. And I think that's what's great about you guys, and I enjoy this part of the business, and especially when you're talking about looking for cookout sites or really retail sites, and maybe we get there. I mean, and if we want to have another one of these meetings and kind of talk through what those deals look like.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a process. And honestly, now that I'm kind of thinking through it and seeing it rolling out, dude, we can put together strategy and training for development opportunities, starting at ground zero, right? This is the hunt. Track down that first deal, boom, proof of concept. And we can document the process as we're going. Well, eventually we'll have so much content that we can roll that out and offer that as a training opportunity. You know how many people would pay buku's amount of money for commercial development training?
Nobody has that.
No one.
In the country.
No.
Wow, that'd be huge.
So my wheels started spinning as we kind of opened up, bro. So that's something that we'll start to really build on.
Yeah.
Is, stack up on the content.
Sure.
And we can get more strategic with, different, maybe every 2 weeks or something we could have a follow up. Right?
Yeah.
Could even be like a luncheon where we order food in, get together, we just talk shop, but we could have just like one topic that we kind of touch on.
Yeah.
And boom, stack up the arsenal.
That'd be great. I love it. I mean, I love that concept.
And you said ideally, what was the price range per acres?
I did for a multifamily. So this is going to be different than single family, right? So for multifamily, it's going to be about 100 to 200. If it's a viable multifamily site, right? And we'll qualify that. From a residential perspective, you're trying to get, a lot lower than that.
Yeah, right.
So,
I get a lot lower than that on the residential side.
Yeah. So I mean, we're trying to get maybe I think a sweet spot for a newer development that maybe the price range is 200 to 300 or 150 to 250 or something like that. I mean, you're looking at I think they try to get into teens per lot.
Gotcha.
Right, so call it 15 per lot. You can fit 4 lots on an acre. Not all the time. I hear people like. They get on me about that because they're like, actually, no, that's not, the rule of thumb. But anyway, that's a good, benchmark. So maybe 15 per lot, 4 lots per acre. So you're at, 60 an acre?
Gotcha.
That's a good
In a good area.
In a good area.
Like close to my house, which is, my old house, is middle income, right?
Yeah.
Like 175 to 250 maybe. But I think those acres, they've sold some smaller houses that a quarter of an acre sold for 30, right? So our ideal point is to come in at about 15, right? And that might be at half of the equity position of what we could realistically get from it.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, commercial wholesaling is not just entitling property and then, selling it. I mean, commercial wholesaling can happen if we have a relationship with a property owner and we're able to get it under contract at a lower value than it's actually worth to the developer, right? Right. So I mean, say we get these properties under contract for 15 an acre. We don't tell Mr. Developer 15 a lot, 30 an acre, whatever. Tell them we don't tell them that this is what we have in our contract for, right? And we ask them. I mean, they say, well, yeah, this is actually worth 45 an acre. Well, let's just do the math on that real quick. Right. Say we have a 10-acre site and we pay 15. No, what call it? 30 an acre. I can't do this.
300 acres, or 300K.
Yeah, so it's 300K for that lot.
Yep.
Times 2, so times 10. All right, so
12, 1.2.
So that's
more.
Yeah, I mean, say they want it for 600. I mean, you double your money. I mean, that's $300,000.
Just like that. Just
boom, wholesale. I mean,
and the thing is, and that's when we're talking residential, right?
That's a residential development. Yeah.
There's so many people who, like, just the average person, they always think 15 an acre. I've heard that so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking back, all those land deals that all those sellers I was calling, like, what was that, a year and a half ago we were doing it? Yeah, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, this is going to be great.
The average person is always thinking, like, for some reason, 15 an acre.
15 an acre or 15 a lot?
An acre.
An acre?
Yeah.
Well, that's even better. Yeah,
I've heard that so many times.
Well, that's, I mean,
15 to 20, I'll say.
If it was 15 to 20 an acre, yeah, I mean, you're in a good sweet spot for, for some of these residential developments. And, I mean, we put these in front of some of these guys and they, for instance, don't know, Ben, were you involved in the one I sent to the one over in White Knoll that I sent to that guy? Did I involve you in that one?
I think you sent something to my email.
Square footage.
I wasn't on the call with that one.
Okay. It's 42,350.
Oh, it's 450.
Yeah.
Square feet.
Yeah. So I'll tell these guys. So what I did is this is an example, right? So there's a property in White Knoll that I pitched to Great Southern Homes. I have a connection with a guy who works at Great Southern Homes, and it was this amount of money. Just got his feedback. It turns out that the sewer was about 200 feet away from the property, right? So that would have been a huge cost for them to have to. The developer's going to have to bring the sewer out, right, to the property. The terrain was such that the property sloped away from the road. So if you think about it, all the sewage has to go towards the road to get to the sewer, right? So you're gonna have to then build up to have a slope so that the drainage or the sewage can get, and the drainage too, So anyway, those are things to think about too. Terrain is a big one, the topography of the site, that kind of thing, and then wetlands. That's another great question. If you ask them, does your property have any wetlands on it? Wetlands. Yeah, because wetlands are going to be. Yeah, it's pretty much undevelopable and usable. Not in every situation, but it definitely adds a cost. So that's going to be a detractor to the value of the property for sure.
What are those?
Wetlands is basically anywhere where the water table is such to where if you start digging in it, you're going to hit water and you're not going to be able to build anything on it.
Gotcha.
Now a lot of times wetlands are protected. If you have like a stream or something like that, they're protected by the government. And in order to fill it in, you have to get a special permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. Army Corps of Engineers are the ones that actually that handle all that stuff, which is kind of interesting to think about it. But, So, like any bridges over water areas or anybody who builds a road that cuts through wetlands, they're working with the Army.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah. So there's two facets, because single family there's opportunities, and then on the commercial side, develop land for the multis is a big grab. I'm wondering. I'm going to do some research. I might be able to dial in by the type of zoning. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that would be huge.
I think I can.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'll try to get a little more organized with the data. So instead of just pulling these acre tracts, I'll start to separate the commercial from residential.
Yeah.
And dial it in. But yeah, relationships with builders. Well, that's something we'll get together and talk about, because I know we got good connections here in Columbia. But places like I don't know how difficult it would be for you to reach out to some people in like Atlanta, bro.
Oh yeah.
We're pulling some lists in Atlanta.
And that's what I'm thinking about. Those.
We're pulling about a contracted date, but we're just like firing off, right? Just boom, locking up contract, where it was clearly in a good developable area.
Absolutely.
But we didn't have a really solid disposition strategy,
right.
So some of those deals ended up not working out.
Yeah.
But if we have some really, really strong connections, bro, that's the end buyer is going to be just as valuable as finding the piece of land.
Absolutely.
Right? So we'll talk about strategies with that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities. We can get pretty well connected with the folks that we'll build a disposition list basically, and eventually hopefully we build up enough equity where we know it's a good deal, it's a viable deal, we got it at the right acreage, let's just go to town, take it down, we would build it ourselves, and then once you build it up and then sell it, man, I'll tell you what, multifamily, Class A multifamily properties right now are trading for it's record breaking, the kind of like people, the appetite that these investment groups, like these big hedge funds have for multifamily right now. It's just crazy. I see this, long term, thinking about a big picture vision, and Ben, I always get inspired from his visionary thinking, but I see this kind of, if we get this down to a science, we're sourcing deals that turn into, just to paint a picture, a multifamily developer, we're not talking hundreds of thousands per deal. We're talking tens of millions per deal, right? That's what these guys are pulling in. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, we can scale up and get to that point. It's gonna be
Well,
solid.
it's going to be a work in progress, but one brick on top of the other.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about Atlanta. Southwest Atlanta is just blowing up from a single family
Is
residential.
that like Henry County?
Henry's more southeast, but I'm thinking, like closer to like Tyrone, Palmetto, Coweta, Newnan. Yeah.
Coweta County, Noonan's a
Coweta is a great example. Even southeast, southwest Fulton County, there's opportunities. But right in that area, I mean, calling those people, trying to lock up those things, would be huge.
Nice.
And then we'll get a reputation, and
Let's do it.
we'll start rocking. So I think this is going to be great.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
It's game time.